You know, I thought about this, and I think the best way to open up this Dragon Ball Super review would be to say something that Riley Freeman from the Boondocks would probably say if he saw this episode. Y'all niggas got your ass whooped! It's the perfect thing to say to sum up this episode of Dragon Ball Super, guys. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, in terms of the plot, it's obviously continuing from episode 56 where, you know, Goku, Zamasu, Trunks, and Black are pretty much going to fight. And the episode starts off with Black fighting Goku, and he's mentioning that he wants to fight Goku badly, and Zamasu's actually saying the same thing, how he himself wants to fight Goku. And this is taking more of a historical approach to Dragon Ball, because in Dragon Ball we've always seen villains trying to target Goku as the protagonist, and I feel that this also adds a lot of mystery to who Black is, for why he has this level of interest in fighting Goku himself. And it also makes me question what future Zamasu has against Goku. Now, as we move on from here in the episode, we see that the fight is proceeding, and Zamasu is stating that he is immortal. And we first saw this when Trunks actually is fighting against Zamasu and stabs him straight through the chest, and it does nothing. He literally heals it like he's Majin Buu on crack. And obviously a lot of people who have been following Super had already seen this hinted from the previews, but I didn't know it would be that type of immortality where it's literally like repairing his body as if he's some like Majin Buu or Namekian type of thing. That was really cool, but it was also kind of creepy too to see how Zamasu was like grinning as Trunks was stabbing him. It was like he's some sort of masochist. So, as we're moving on, one thing I noticed is that Trunks is surprisingly holding his own very well against Zamasu. Obviously he's losing, and obviously he's not really doing any damage, but he was getting in some good blows. And power scaling wise, I sat back and thought about it, and I realized that Trunks, in terms of power, is at most, you know, in terms of what he can accomplish, a Super Saiyan 2, but yet he's fighting against these villains who are a lot stronger than him, like the Super Saiyan Blues were. So maybe Trunks just has a fighter's high where he's just fighting everything and using everything he's got, but he really fought a lot better than I expected him to going into this episode. And as the fight moves on, we see that Black is powering up a Kamehameha once we see that Trunks and Goku are starting to lose the fight. And I'll talk a lot more about the fight specifically in just a second. But the interesting thing is that Zamasu is further showing his immortal powers, because Black is powering up this evil looking pinkish blackish Kamehameha, and Zamasu, the masochist that he is, holds Goku and Trunks in place so that they can't move. And I thought this was like, this guy is literally showing off his immortality by saying, guess what? This powerful blast is gonna hit me and it's not gonna do a damn thing. And that's exactly what happened. So now we see that Trunks and, you know, Goku are obviously severely injured, you know, after obviously showing a lot of Zamasu's immortality powers. And Zamasu and Black are getting ready to finish off everybody. They're powering up an energy blast that's very similar to what kind of reminded me with the Birder and Jace tag team attacks, how like they have like one red energy blast and a blue energy blast, or purplish, and they pretty much power it up together like they're gonna finish him off. And this is where my respect for Vegeta increased. Vegeta showed off that he seriously is a badass. With a hole straight through the abdomen, or more so like a chest, Vegeta powers up and shoots Final Flash that completely destroys the energy blast that Black and Zamasu were about to use to destroy Goku and Trunks. And I thought that that was like, wow, Vegeta just literally powered up a Final Flash to destroy, I'm sorry, the energy blast that was about to destroy those two. And I'm like, he's doing this while injured. That was an awesome scene. So after this, you know, obviously the energy blast would have distracted them. Yajirobe jumps to the rescue just like he always does throughout the Saiyan Saga, and I love that about Yajirobe. Like, Yajirobe, you know, during the Saiyan Saga when, you know, Vegeta was pretty much going crazy and destroying everything in his path, he chops off his tail, kind of like that unsung hero. And Yajirobe, once again, in a future that he shouldn't be alive in, jumps to the rescue, saves Goku and Trunks. And as Vegeta's about to get in trouble, we see the resistance soldiers shooting off all of this smoke that pretty much distracts him so that Mai could save Vegeta. Now, what do I think about all of this? without doing so much narrating, I wanted to talk about one thing that kind of nitpicked me. Now, this episode was phenomenal. I don't want people to think that I'm bashing at anything at this episode, but there was one thing. It would be the fact that it's kind of hard to believe that these super powerful villains are like affected by smoke like that. And it's also incredible to see that, considering the fact that just before, Black shot a super powerful Kamehameha that had an insanely high amount of smoke right in Zamasu's face that had no effect on him. But now this tear gas looking stuff has effect on them. And these guys move so fast, you mean to tell me they couldn't have moved fast enough to get away from it? I don't know. That was the one thing that I kind of had a problem with, and I kind of mentioned this before when I was talking about Black in the last episode, how like Black is strong enough to wipe everybody out in one blast if he felt so, and he's so fast they can't really run from him. So that was the only small nitpick I had, but I understand that they needed to have a way to save Vegeta from the scene too, and obviously Mai jumps in and saves him. So this is what takes me to the pretty much the climax of the plot element of this review, where we see Mai powering up the time machine, and we saw this in a way where Mai is showing a very adept ability of programming a time machine. I don't know how she learned. I don't know if she was working hand in hand with Bulma. Obviously, she's met Bulma before, but it's just kind of incredible to see how easily she was just manipulating it and just said, all right, Trunks, go back to the past. And it's kind of emotional how like you're seeing Trunks like he's like tearing up, seeing the fact that Mai is now staying here in the future while, you know, he, Vegeta, and Goku all pretty much beat up are going away. And it's also funny how like Trunks was the most conscious, when in fact Trunks was probably the weakest, actually no, is the weakest out of the three of them, but obviously Vegeta was already injured from before. And also considering that Goku, if anybody, should have been more conscious than Trunks, because his body, I would guess, is more durable. But that's another thing though, and I thought that scene was really great to show how Trunks truly cares about Mai, and it just shows you that the series is really playing with the whole emotions thing. So now, let's just talk strictly about the action, guys. Wow! This was sick! I mean, wow, this fight was fucking good. Alright, and listen, if YouTube is gonna demonetize this one video because I'm cursing, they could pull it down, alright? You guys can take a guess what words I'm looking for there. But I'm just gonna go all out and I'm gonna speak as naturally as possible. This is Quinn speaking to you right now. That fucking tag team fight was amazing! I mean, just looking at the choreography, looking at the animation, looking at the way the characters were just moving so cohesively into each other. I'm like, I haven't seen a fight like this in Dragon Ball for a while. Like, Resurrection of F and Battle of Gods looked like this. And although a lot of people don't have very high thoughts about Resurrection F has very mixed opinions, the action sequences were really, really, really good in this episode, and they were long too. It's not like they put them for like 20 seconds. Like, the fight was pretty long in this episode, and I really like how Trunks and Goku were like standing back to back and like fighting both of them simultaneously. Like, that was like a complete nostalgia trip. And also, to add to the action, when Trunks powered up that final flash, I was like, bro, that was awesome. I didn't expect him to do that. Now, a lot of people have also theorized, I've said this before, people have theorized that Trunks' burning attack is like a variant of the Masenko, and people have also theorized that Trunks' finish buster is kind of like a final flash type of element, or double buster. I think it was Kid Trunks who uses it. But just the fact that Trunks just powered it up like that, it's like, this is just such a fanboy element of the episode that it was just like sick. So obviously, the action sequences look like movie quality, the animation was on point, but what really made this episode awesome, and Black and Fist was pointing this out to me, is that they were fighting in the city, and I really like it whenever people show these characters fighting in a city, because it makes the battle seem a lot more destructive. You know, it's like if you have superheroes fighting in like a wasteland or the Arctic or in outer space or on like a huge uninhabited planet, it doesn't have the same appeal, because it's like you don't feel like these guys can really destroy as much stuff. But when it's in a city, it's uncomfortable, it's cramped. Now, albeit, yeah, I'm like 95%, 99% of Earth is dead, but it still gives you that awesome feeling of like just seeing these guys like they're throwing each other through buildings and stuff. It gives you a very dark, apocalyptic type of feel, which is what I really loved about the action sequences in it. And I also loved how, you know, the energy blasts were pretty much being combined in such a smooth fashion in this episode. Just seeing them move and dodge it was just incredible. Goku doing backflips, phenomenal action sequences. I can't speak more about it because I think I already have. And I mean, that pretty much sums up what I think about the action. Now, to move on to some interesting details, the first thing is that Goku was pretty much saying, you know, earlier in the episode that who exactly was black to Zamasu, and Zamasu pretty much said, we are not necessarily one in a kind, we're kindred spirits. And for those of you who don't know, a kindred spirit is pretty much a person whose attitude is similar to one's own. So it's like, you know, for example, Geekdom and I have kindred spirits because we both hate clickbait, and that's one thing that we both have in common. We hate clickbait together. That's kind of like an idea of what I'm getting at here. So obviously, Zamasu hates humans. Black has obviously showed that too, but it just makes me wonder how Black was created, and was Black's, you know, negative thoughts towards humans kind of an offset of what Zamasu kind of implied or created him to be, or are these natural feelings, or are these feelings that are artificial? That was the interesting thing in that. And the other thing is that in the version that I was watching, later on when we see after Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks were defeated, we cut to a scene where we see Zamasu, who is on, you know, the Supreme Kai planet, and he's pretty much, you know, watching television with Gowasu, and Gowasu is pretty much watching the Goku fight with Hit, and he's saying, I want to be a god tuber. Now, I don't know if that's the literal direct translation, but in the version I saw that, and I was like, wow, is he like saying like a YouTuber or something like that? And the fact that Gowasu is like watching a fight on television makes me wonder who the hell was recording that fight. It's like, are you serious? Like, I don't remember anybody recording that fight, or maybe they have like hidden cameras somewhere, but that was really interesting to see. And also to see the fact that, you know, Zamasu was asking about the Super Dragon Balls, and he pretty much heads over at the end of the episode to ask Zuno about what's going on, because that, my friends, is pretty much giving us an implication of what Zamasu is going to become. So pretty much overall, Zamasu is proving that he is a bigger threat because of his immortality, which is why I think it makes it awesome, because it's not really about your power. Now, guys like the Omni King or others are going to struggle to beat him simply because of the fact that he's immortal. I think the action was great in this episode, and this episode is really setting up the rest of Dragon Ball Super, where we're now going to see that the Z Fighters are possibly going to have to fight two evil Zamasus at the same time, which I think is awesome. It's such a twist. It kind of reminds me of the Android Saga, where although Imperfect Cell wasn't a major threat in power by the time Trunks went back, it's kind of like Trunks's story is screwed up, while now the present is also screwed at the same time too, and at the end of the day, we now have to fix both timelines. It's pretty much what Trunks did. So I'm gonna have to say this episode was a 5. I think the moment between Mai and Trunks was powerful. How you just saw Trunks' facial expression, you know, at the scene where he's pretty much seeing, you know, Mai just staying on the ground. And really, I think the most memorable moment of this episode would have to be the look on Bulma's face when she sees Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks all knocked out. It's like, wow, like she is like so stunned. It literally looked like a mother who like saw her child like nearly die, which is kind of what is actually in this situation, along with her husband and her good friend. But like that was like a legitimate facial reaction. Like it was priceless to see Bulma's face in that reaction. And this episode was the closest thing Dragon Ball Super could get to perfect. It's the best episode of Super so far. And it's funny because I just said episode 56 was the best episode. So I'm stoked. And as far as my predictions go, from what we see in the previews, because of Zamasu's grin at the end of the previews, coupled with the fact that he's looking for the Super Dragon Balls by visiting Zuno, I predict that this episode will serve as more of an expository piece that will create the threat of two troubled timelines. And I also predict that Gowasu will probably die in this episode or the episode after. And the reason is just like I said before, it just makes sense to kill him off for the plot to continue. How did future Zamasu get the green earring? How did this future Zamasu potentially get access to all of these things? It just makes sense for Gowasu to die. Story-wise, it's just perfect. And I said this ever since I saw Gowasu. So this all makes a lot of sense as well because of the fact that Zamasu was also showing a level of interest with the time rings. So his curiosity, his sense of morality, and the fact that he and Gowasu clash is reasons why I say Gowasu's time is going to come up very, very, very soon. So the only question I have in terms of the preview is whether or not Zuno's omniscient abilities really have the ability to predict things. And the reason why I'm saying this is I would expect that Zuno should see Zamasu's intentions of all, because if he pretty much knows everything in the universe, he should have known that Zamasu would probably be coming, and he probably should have warned somebody or at least done something in preparation of this. I don't know. That was one thing I was wondering about, but I don't know that right now, guys. Nobody does. We'll eventually find out, but all I know is I am stoked for Dragon Ball Super right now, and I hope you guys enjoyed my episode review and predictions. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and I had a lot to say in this episode.